Tales from the Jails with John G. Sutton. That's me, by the way. Please don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy this channel. Yeah, maybe have a look at my book on Amazon. HMP Manchester Prison Officer, John G. Sutton. I'm going to talk today about Graham Young, also known as the TEACUP poisoner, because Graham Young was infamous for poisoning his workmates. And I met Graham Young a number of times during my travels through HM prisons. First of all, met him at Wormwood Scrubs. It would be 1975. All right, it would probably be June of 1975. It could have been late May. And I was on the hospital wing, on the hospital ward. I was just into Wormwood Scrubs. I'd completed the training course, and there I was on the ward. And the officer in charge of the ward, the hospital officer, said to me, John, because I introduced myself as John, he said, John, sit down here. He said, you and I are going to have a cup of tea. And he called this inmate over. He said, make Mr. Sutton a nice cup of tea. So this inmate said to me, sugar? I said, no, sugar, just tea, So brought me a cup of tea and a couple of ginger biscuits with the tea, He said, I sincerely hope you enjoy that. I said, well, that's very kind of you, young man. A prisoner, Didn't think nothing about it. Talking to the hospital officer, and I drank the tea and dunked the ginger nuts, as you usually do, Me being an Englishman. And I'd finished the tea, and he was telling me about the inmates on the ward. He said, oh, what did you make of the tea boy? I said, yeah, he's very, very good, made a nice cup of tea. He said, do you know who that is? I said, no, I have no idea who it is. He said, that's Graham Young. I said, the Graham Young? He said, yeah, Graham Young, the teacup poisoner. And he just had the bloody bloke who got life imprisonment times 4 or something like that, for murdering his workmates by poisoning them, putting paraquat and various other poisonous substances into the teapot that he then served to all his workmates. There were people collapsing, people with their hair falling out, people dying, and they got it in the end to Graham Young, who was a notorious, infamous poisoner. So that was the first time I met Graham Young. About 6 months later, I was on duty again in the hospital, and I was in charge of 2 members of a terrorist group who had been arrested in Brighton for going armed with a list of people that they were coming to London to kill. Except these 2 so-called terrorists didn't even know they were in the prison, in the scrubs. They woke up in this cell. It was a cell within a cell within a prison. Yeah, seriously. The highest security that Wormwood Scrubs could afford, they were in it, and I was locked in there with them, except I was between the 2 cells, between the bars. So they woke up and said, boss, where are we, boss, really? I said, you're in the scrubs. The scrubs? Where's that now? I said, this is here. Her Majesty's Prison, because it was Her Majesty's Prison then. I said, Her Majesty's Prison, Wormwood Scrubs in London. What the hell are we doing in here? He said, he didn't know where he was. Didn't know why he was there. I said, you've been arrested, What are they supposed to be doing? They were just completely bladdered out of their heads. The both of them. They didn't know where the hell they were. So I said to them, listen, calm down. You'll get it sorted out. You'll see your solicitor in the tomorrow, and he'll explain it to you. What are we in those bloody scrubs for? They didn't know. These people were supposed to be terrorists. They were about as much like terrorists as Andy Bloody Pandy. Yeah? They were just a couple of complete piss artists who'd been lifted by whoever, probably MI5 or somebody, just to get get a collar, you know. Anyway, it got to be about 1:30 in the morning, and these two are just starting to wake up, you know, and wonder where the hell they are. And we hear this singing. It goes like this, while just Daisy, Daisy, give me your answer. On and on and on. Like that. It was Graham Young. He'd cracked up on the ward and they'd put him into one of the cells, padded cells, you know. And he was singing. I said, listen, lads, you two. I said, we can't put up with this. We're going to sing him a song. I don't know any song. I said, of course you know. I mean, you're Irish, aren't you? Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. You're from Dublin, yeah. Right, okay. We're going to sing Danny Boy. Are you ready? So I started singing, oh, Danny Boy, the pipes. I said, come on, join in. They didn't know the bloody words. Two Irishmen didn't know the words to Danny Boy. So I was singing that on my own, and Graham Young singing A Bicycle Made for Two, and the hospital officer come down, and he shouted, shut the fuck up! Yeah, so I stopped singing, and he went in to Graham Young's cell, and he had this bloody syringe, yeah, big syringe, yeah. Poof, bang! And that was the last we heard of Daisy, Daisy, give me your answer to Graham Young, the teacup poisoner. It was 1982 when I next saw Graham Young, and I was on placement as a hospital officer. I was on the hospital officer's training course, seconded to the NHS, then into the training school, then back to the NHS, and then I was sent to what was then Park Lane Institute for the Criminally Insane. It's now called Ashworth. So anyway, I gets in there and I walked through the door and they got allocated to a wing. I was allocated to the psychiatrically disturbed wing, you know, the criminally real dangerous wing. I don't know why they picked me, I don't know. But anyway, sent me into this wing. I walked into this wing and I'd no sooner been in there about 2 minutes and this guy come up to me. He had a little Hitler-type moustache, like that, you know, little Hitler-type moustache, jet black hair. He had a Nazi armband on, seriously. And he come up to me and he said, Mr. Sutton, how are you doing, mate? And he reached out and shook my right hand. It was bloody Graham Young. He was dressed up as Hitler, seriously. And he said, come and have a look at this. He led me and took me into his cell, into his unit, you know, a little. They didn't really lock them up in the day. They were free to walk round, you know. So the cell wasn't locked. So he showed me his cell. He had great big Nazi flags on his wall and swastikas and books on. He had a copy of Adolf Hitler's Mein Kampf, you know, My Struggle, written by Adolf Hitler, yeah? All that stuff. And he was giving me a lecture about the Germans and what brilliant soldiers they were, and showed me how to salute. And Graham Young, he remembered me. I mean, imagine that. I'd only really spoken to him no more than a couple of times, and that was like 5 years before at Wormwood Scrubs. In between that time and us meeting in Ashworth Hospital, what is now Ashworth Hospital, 5 years had passed. He must have met thousands of people in the meantime, because he was bloody notorious. Anyway, he'd remembered me, come up and shoot my hand. And all that, I was there for 2 weeks at Ashworth, kept coming up. He said to me, I'm going to show you something, Mr. Sutton. He said, this'll maybe in time to come, you'll need this. I said, and what are you going to show me, Graham Young? He said, I'm going to show you how to kill somebody with a very simple, everyday household item. He said, you turn this into a deadly poison. It only covers a teaspoon. You put that in the tea, guaranteed dead next morning. I said, are you sure I need to know this? He said, you might do. And as God's my witness, he showed me how to do it. I won't repeat on here exactly how he did it, but let me tell you this. It takes about a week of preparation, but given the time and the inclination, I now know how to kill somebody. And he said, it'll be very unlikely that they'll trace it, you know. He was then transferred, it's about a year after, he was transferred out of Ashworth, which was Park Lane at the time, to Parkhurst, because one of the staff at Ashworth had been taken on. They thought it was Graham Young poisoning him. And he was sent to Parkhurst, where he was supposedly died of a heart attack. But they reckoned that the other inmates had terminated the bastard because a number of them were falling ill. So he'd have got to Parkhurst and been poisoning his fellow inmates. I've now... Yeah, that's my story about Graham Young. It's in my next book, folks. HMP Manchester Prison Officer Volume 2. Yeah, and that's the song dinger, by the way. I know it strikes terror into your hearts. Yeah, I'm going to read you a poem now. This is by request, actually. This is from a nice guy called Vincent Burkhardt. And he's asked me to read one of the war poets. And I've got a couple of them, but I thought I'd read this one, which is by Wilfred Owen, who was killed in World War One. This is Dulce et Decorum Est. I used to go around schools. I did for a period of time work for the school's library service because I was an internationally famous author at one time. My best-selling book, by the way, is Psychic Pets. Have a look that up. Psychic Pets, John Sutton. Yeah, it was published in America by Scholastic. And I went to America and I was with Fox News in New York. The Children's News Network. I filmed 8 episodes for them. And then I was picked up by Walt Disney. And they flew me to Orlando and put me up on the stage at where was it? The big theatre in Orlando and filmed that for a thing called the Animal Planet channel. It was called Pittsburgh, USA, and they actually took my picture, and it may still be up on the wall inside the theatre there. This is Dulce et Decorum Est. That was when I was almost famous. And shortly after that, I was asked by Derek Acora to manage him and to write his books, and which I did. It was a big mistake, because he was a terribly strange character. More on that in later books. Anyway, folks, this is Wilfred Owen's Dulce et Decorum Est. Bent double like old beggars under sacks, knock-kneed, coughing like hags, we cursed through sludge, till on the haunting flares we turned our backs, and towards our distant rest began to trudge. Men marched asleep. Many had lost their boots, but limped on, bloodshod. All went lame, all blind, drunk with fatigue, deaf, even to the hoots of tired, outstripped 5-9s that dropped behind. Gas! Gas, quick, boys! An ecstasy of fumbling, fitting the clumsy helmets just in time. But someone still was yelling out and stumbling, and floundering like a man in fire or lime. Dim through the misty panes and thick green light, as under a green sea I saw him drowning. In all my dreams before my helpless sight, he plunges at me, guttering, choking, drowning. If in some smothering dreams you too could pace behind the wagon that we flung him in and watch the white eyes writhing in his hanging face like a devil's sick of sin, if you could hear at every jolt the blood come gurgling from the froth-corrupted lungs, obscene as cancer, bitter as the end of vile, incurable sores on innocent tongues, my friend, you would not tell with such high zest to children, ardent for some desperate glory, the old lie, dulce et decorum est pro patria matre. That's it. Tales from the jails. It is great to die for your country. It isn't.